I wonder if you have heard about the three men from a prayer group who were out on a retreat hike. And during this hike, they came to a large, rushing, turbulent river that they needed to cross. So, being that they were in a prayer group, they each said their own prayer to help them in crossing the river. And the first man, he prayed for strength to cross the river safely. And boom, his muscles became bulging in his arms and in his legs, and he was able to swim across that river, nearly drowning only twice, and yet he lands on the other side safely. So the second man, having witnessed what happened with the first, he prayed for strength and the tools to cross the river safely. And boom, he gets these bulging arm muscles and a one-man rowboat which he is able to navigate across the river, only nearly capsizing one time, and land safely on the other side. So the third man, having witnessed what his two prayer partners have experienced, he prayed for strength and the tools and the intelligence to be able to cross the river safely. And boom, there is a woman in front of him with a map, with a bridge circled on the map that is only 100 yards north of the trail, and he follows her and crosses the bridge with ease and grace. Well, how many times have you been like any one of these three men? Coming to a river in your life where things are just churning and bubbling up, and you say your prayers and your affirmations, and you make it through this time, through this river, and yet you feel that it was a little bit more rough than what you expected it to be. So, what is that about? I would like to say that coming to that river that was turbulent and bubbling up is similar, is akin to divine discontent. And divine discontent is an intellectual is when you have an intellectual understanding of truth that brings you to the doorness of awareness, and spiritual understanding is demonstrating the truth of who you are. And it's that your heart is calling you to the bridge of spiritual understanding, and it leads you to deeper understanding. I can recall for myself, I can recall a time when that divine discontent was really stirring up big time in me. I had been reading some spiritual books, authors like Wayne Dyer, Catherine Ponder, and I had read these books, and yet my life was still remaining basically unchanged. And as the events in my life were bubbling and churning within me, it became evident that I needed to do something different. And that is when I showed up in a Unity church, and my life has been transformed, and nothing and everything changed. In the book, Your God Given Potential, Winifred Wilkinson Hausman says this about understanding. The awakening of our own faculty of understanding starts with questioning. Questioning the old ways of thinking that may have been taken for granted, wondering about the way and the truth, desiring to know above all else, desiring to know the spiritual truth. The desire for understanding leads to study, to thinking about what is learned and seeking to put it all together in a body of information that will provide a basis for living. We're here in a unity church. And being in a unity church, it is likely that we are each seeking to transform something about ourselves and perhaps something about the world. To be transformed, spiritualize your understanding. In the Bible, we find a story about intellectual understanding coming to wisdom and being spiritualized. And this story is found in the first book of Kings, chapter 10, verses 1 through 10. When the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, fame due to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. She came to Jerusalem with a great retinue, with camels bearing spices and very much gold and precious stones. And she came to Solomon. She told him all that was on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba had observed all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food of his table, the seating of his officials, and the attendance of his servants, their clothing, his valets, and the burnt offerings that he offered at the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. She said to the king, "The report was true that I heard in my own land of your accomplishments and of your wisdom. But I did not believe the reports until I came and my own eyes had seen it. Not even half had been told me. Your wisdom and prosperity far surpassed the report that I had heard. Happy are your wives. Happy are these your servants who continually attend you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel. Because the Lord loved Israel forever, he has made you king to execute justice and righteousness." Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold, a great quantity of spices and precious stones. Never again did spices come in such quantity as that which the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Well, the Queen of Sheba is also referred to in the Christian scriptures in the book of Matthew, chapter 12, as the Queen of the South. And the South represents enlightenment and philosophical reasoning. It is enlightenment, the highest enlightenment on the physical plane. But it is not spiritual wisdom. So she comes to Jerusalem, the center of consciousness. And she comes with her advisors, what she knows, and with all of those goodies, her value, her inner value, and communes with Solomon, which is spiritual wisdom. She is seeking guidance from spiritual wisdom, the wisdom center within. And Solomon told her all her questions. Divine wisdom revealed transcendent truth, and that resulted in the calm peace of fulfillment. Now, that's one way to interpret the story. Another way be when we hear from Queen of Sheba herself. I am the Queen of Sheba, Queen of the South. In my country, far from Jerusalem, I had heard about King Solomon and his riches and wondrous wisdom. These stories were so great, I did not believe them. Surely someone was exaggerating. I was in such a state of disbelief that I had to see this with my own eyes. No ruler could be both rich and wise. I speak from personal experience. Perhaps it was my own inner self-doubt. But that thought cannot be shared in public. I commanded that a great train of camels laden with spices and precious stones be assembled. Oh, what self-assuredness I felt and experienced as we traveled the land toward Jerusalem. My visit with Solomon did not disappoint. I was amazed to witness the prosperity and the wisdom of this great king, and it far exceeded what I had been told. Solomon was gracious with his wisdom. He shared with me all that he knew. And I was so giddy with delight and excitement and entrancement that I gifted him with precious stones, metals, 120 talents of gold, and many, many spices, many of my precious spices from my country. Oh, but you see, I did not leave Jerusalem empty. Solomon gave me all that I desired. I parted from this wise ruler, full and contented. Some say that I desired a child from Solomon. Was that what I desired? What do you think? Spiritual understanding leads to new depths of love and power. In the Unity Classic book, Lessons in Truth, Emily Cady has a chapter that is devoted to spiritual understanding. And she says this on pages 104 and 105. When you first consciously desire spiritual understanding, you do not attain it at once. You have been living in the external of your being, and you have believed yourself cut off from God. Your first step after coming to yourself like the prodigal son is to say as he did, I will get up and go to my Father. Luke 15, verse 18. To turn your thoughts away from the external seeming toward the central and real. To know intellectually that you are not cut off from God, and that he forever desires to manifest himself within you as the present deliverance from all suffering and sin. Just as Jesus taught, we begin our journey toward understanding by cutting off the branches of our selfishness. Begin with the words of truth that you have learned and which perhaps you have yet only comprehended with the intellect. You must be willing to take the very first light you receive and use it faithfully, earnestly, to help both yourself and others. Sometimes you will be almost overcome by questions and doubts arising in your own mind when you are looking in vain for results. Divine discontent. But you must with effort pass the place of doubt, and someday, in the fullness of God's time, while you are using the words of truth, they will suddenly be illumined and become to you the living word within you, the true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. John 1, verse 9. You will no longer dwell in darkness, for the light will be within your own heart, and the word will be made flesh to you. That is, you will be conscious of a new and divine life in your body, and a diviner life in your body, and a new and diviner love for all people, a new and diviner power to accomplish. This is spiritual understanding. Well, at the time that that book was written, the Unity 5 principles had not yet been articulated. That was written in the early 1900s, and the Unity principles were created in the later half of the 20th century. And to me, what that expresses is our principle number 5, that it is not enough to just know these spiritual teachings, these truth principles. We must live and express the truth that we know. Walk the talk. So, if you want to be transformed, spiritualize your understanding. We are all on a journey of transformation. Seeking spiritual understanding will deepen the experience of transformation. By bringing the questions of our divine discontent to our wisdom center within, we spiritualize our understanding. True transformation is evidenced by how we live the truth that we know. When you spiritualize your understanding, you transform your life, the lives of those around you, and the world that you experience. So this week, when you find yourself at that river, when you are experiencing divine discontent, be aware of it. Feel it bubble up. And then turn within. Transform your life as you spiritualize your understanding. Your life, the lives of those around you, and the world that you experience will be transformed. You will be a blessing, and you will be blessed. Amen.